Guess how much I love you. In a beautiful, quiet meadow, where the gentle wind danced through the trees and the scent of wildflowers filled the air, two hares lived together in perfect harmony. Big Nutbrown Hare, with his large, soft ears and gentle nature, was the proud parent of little Nutbrown Hare, a smaller, energetic hare with a heart full of love. The day was slowly turning to evening, and the sky painted itself in soft shades of pink and lavender. Little Nutbrown Hare bounced around in the meadow, chasing butterflies, while Big Nutbrown Hare watched from nearby, content with the sight of his little one at play. As the sun's golden rays began to fade, little Nutbrown Hare stopped his frolicking and turned toward Big Nutbrown Hare. His eyes sparkled with curiosity, and he asked with a joyful grin, "Guess how much I love you?" Big Nutbrown Hare paused, his heart swelling with warmth at the question. He smiled down at his little one and said softly, "I don't know, little Nutbrown Hare. How much do you love me?" Little Nutbrown Hare thought for a moment. He looked around, his little paws outstretched, as he tried to think of a way to express his enormous feelings. Finally, with all the excitement he could muster, he stretched his tiny arms out as wide as they could go and exclaimed, "I love you this much." He beamed with pride, standing on his tiptoes, his arms reaching toward the sky, as if trying to capture all the love he felt inside. Big Nutbrown Hare chuckled gently and shook his head, his smile growing even wider. "Oh, that's a lot of love," he said, but he wasn't about to let little Nutbrown Hare outdo him. "I love you even more than that," Big Nutbrown Hare said, stretching his own long arms out as far as they could go, his paws wide and reaching, almost touching the sky. "I love you this much." Little Nutbrown Hare laughed in delight. He wanted to show just how deep his love for Big Nutbrown Hare really was. So he crouched down low, then jumped as high as his little legs would carry him, reaching for the highest branch of a nearby tree. "I love you all the way to the top of that tree," he shouted, pointing to the tallest oak, its branches swaying gently in the wind. Big Nutbrown Hare watched with a proud smile as little Nutbrown Hare hopped higher and higher. "That's a lot of love," he said, but he continued with a twinkle in his eye. "I love you all the way to the moon." Little Nutbrown Hare's eyes grew wide with wonder. He had never imagined love could stretch so far. "To the moon?" he asked, his voice filled with amazement. "That's so far. How could you love me that much?" Big Nutbrown Hare knelt down beside little Nutbrown Hare, his long, soft ears twitching in the breeze. "Well," he said, "the moon may seem far away, but my love for you reaches that far and beyond. No distance can measure the love I feel for you." As the evening grew darker, little Nutbrown Hare felt the soft tug of sleep beginning to settle over him. The sky above was now a deep navy, with stars twinkling like diamonds in the sky. The moon hung low and bright, casting a silver glow over the meadow. Little Nutbrown Hare looked up at the sky, and then back at Big Nutbrown Hare, who was now sitting beside him, watching the stars together. Little Nutbrown Hare let out a soft yawn. "I love you all the way to the moon and back," he murmured, snuggling up against Big Nutbrown Hare's warm fur. "All the way to the moon and back." Big Nutbrown Hare smiled, his heart full of tenderness. He leaned down and kissed the top of little Nutbrown Hare's head. "I love you to the moon and back, too," he whispered, his voice soft like the wind through the trees. "And even more, if that's possible." Little Nutbrown Hare smiled as his eyes fluttered closed, comforted by the warmth of Big Nutbrown Hare's love. As the stars twinkled above them, he drifted peacefully to sleep, dreaming of adventures that stretched far beyond the meadow and the moon. But no matter where his dreams took him, he knew that Big Nutbrown Hare's love would always be with him, a love that reached farther than any hare could hop. Big Nutbrown Hare sat quietly for a moment, watching the little hare sleep, and then, with a sigh of contentment, lay down beside him. The meadow was calm and quiet, and the soft rustling of the trees was the only sound in the night. Big Nutbrown Hare's heart was full. He knew that no matter how much little Nutbrown Hare loved him, his love would always reach just a little bit further, deeper than the deepest forest or the farthest star. It was a love that never ended, that would never fade, a love that was as infinite as the sky itself. And so, in the quiet of the meadow, under the watchful stars and the glowing moon, the two hares slept peacefully, wrapped in the unbreakable bond of love that reached all the way to the moon and beyond.